American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag cause we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. We never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We make up America, it's amazing America. Oh, yeah.
All right, welcome to the Sergeant Frank Show. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but I think we have it worked out now. And on the phone, we have a retired Miami Police Department K-9 officer, plus a lot of other things. What did you do in Miami, sir?
Well, it was city of Coral Gables. It wasn't Miami.
Oh, okay, my bad. So Coral Gables.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah,
to Coral
my
Gables.
dad was on city of Miami for quite a few years until he died in '63.
So you actually so your dog retired and went to Miami?
No. My dog. I went on into the K-9 in '64, and I was promoted to sergeant in '66. And once I was promoted to sergeant, then they took me off the K-9 and put me in uniform patrol, but left me in charge of the K-9. So the dog was my dog. It wasn't the city's dog. It belonged to me.
Wait a minute.
So
you bought the dog?
Well, I had him since he was just a little pup.
And that's the dog
I
you used?
I always had Rocky. I always had the dog.
So Rocky was your actual personal dog, and you
Yeah,
brought him to
yeah.
work to use as a K-9.
Yeah, he was my personal dog, and we went to. There was three of us to start with. We went to it was the school there. It was called K-9 Incorporated, and that's where we went for training for 8 weeks. And of course, I had my own dog, who was a full-blood German Shepherd, and so I just used him, for my dog.
Wow. I could tell you we don't do it like that anymore, which is really cool.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it anymore, but 1964 was a long time ago.
Well, that's that's amazing. That alone is a story. So what year did you become a police officer?
I went on in December of '58.
And what did you do before that? Were you in the military?
Well, before that, I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay, so you went from the Marine Corps to law enforcement.
I went in the Marine Corps
in the city of Coral Gables.
Yeah, I went in the Marine Corps in 1954. Got out in 1957, and I had a couple of odd jobs and all. And I applied for the police department, and they called me, and I went to work there in December of '58.
And what made you what made you want to become a police officer? Was it because you're in the military?
Well, my dad was one. My dad had been one in Atlanta, and we moved to Miami, and he got on the Miami Police Department.
So you come from a legacy of law enforcement.
Yeah, my brother was also on the sheriff's department in Dade County. So he retired there, but the same year I did in '86.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's not only that, but I have cousins in Atlanta and Decatur, Georgia. They were all on the police department.
No kidding.
So it's pretty much runs in the family, I guess you'd say.
No, it definitely does. Well, I can tell you, I stopped at how I met your daughters was I stopped at a place to get gas, and all the gas pumps were broken. So then I thought there was, I walked inside, I thought it was a convenience store. And I told them a little bit about our program. Adopt a Cop USA is a program where we go into elementary schools and we mentor and protect children. And she goes, well, my dad was a police officer. And in fact, he was the first K-9 officer. And I was like, no way, I definitely want to talk to him. So that's how I reached out to them, and then they gave us your number so that, or actually you called me, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, she brags about me to everybody all the time. So she's just one of my daughters. I got 3 daughters, and she's the youngest.
But they weren't in Miami when I met them. So how did they end up there?
Well, we were all in Miami at the time. I mean, they grew up in Miami.
Right.
And my first wife, my ex-wife, moved I bought some property in Ocala in 1977. I bought 10 acres right down from Don Garlick's, and 80. I think it was about 1981, 82, and then my wife and my daughter moved up there. We had a mobile home put on it and everything. And they moved up there, and I lived in Miami with my brother and my mother-in-law until I retired in '86. And then when I retired, then I moved to Ocala.
Okay.
So we all lived there, and now I still got two daughters in Ocala, and I got one that lives in Live Oak.
Okay. Very nice. And so what did you do in the Marine Corps? What was your job in the Marine Corps?
I was in 3rd Marine Air Wing, and I was in airplane. I was in maintenance, mechanic, and airplane captain, and took care of the planes and got them pre-flighted and got them ready. We were it was a fighter squadron. We had 84s, 84 fighters. We didn't have jets then. The Navy had some jets, but the Marines, of course, they're the last to get in. They're the stepchild, so they hadn't got the jets yet. We were still using the 84s.
So what airplane was it?
Well, it was 84. It was a fighter. It was a prop job. They used it in the Korean War and
I never heard
Second
of an
War.
84.
Yeah, no, AD4. That's the name of it.
AD4.
Yeah, it's a Sky Raider, AD4 Sky Raider.
Okay, did that look kind of like a Hellcat? I'm trying to picture what that plane
Well,
looked
it was kind of like the Corsair, but it was a different shape. It was advanced. It was newer than the Corsair.
Well, I loved the Corsair. When I was a kid, I loved Black Sheep Squadron, Pappy Boyington, and all that. So I was a big fan of the Marines a long time before my brother became a Marine. And actually, it was funny. He was an Airedale as well. He worked on different. I think he worked on helicopters, and I think he worked on some jets as well. And then my other brother, he was in the Air Force, and I joined the Coast Guard because I didn't ever want to copy my brothers. I wanted to do my own thing, so I had to do something different. So I wanted to be the law of the sea, because that's what the recruiter told me. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I signed up there, right then and there. So now, were you in the military during any conflicts? Were you in the military?
Well, it was the Korean War was just getting over when I went in '54.
Okay.
And it was just it was winding down then. I was never in actual combat, no.
Okay. So
we were on a med cruise for 8 months on the aircraft carrier, Lake Champlain.
Which aircraft carrier was that?
It's a Lake Champlain. It's been decommissioned and scrapped by now. It's not. That was the aircraft carrier that rescued the. You remember the first space flight where they come down with in the pod the parachute?
Yes.
Well, that first one, it was the Lake Champlain that rescued them out at sea when they landed out there in the water.
Wow. Were you
now
on the
they
ship
got
at
a
the
Lake
time of that?
Champlain. Do what?
Were you on the ship when that happened?
No, that was long after I got out of the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
But see, the Navy's got another ship now that's called the Lake Champlain, but it's not an aircraft carrier. I think it's a destroyer. I'm not positive.
So they actually
But they renamed
it.
So they're still using the name, but the aircraft carrier itself is gone.
That's interesting. I didn't know they would do that.
Yeah, they reuse the name, but it's either a battle wagon or a destroyer. I'm not sure which it is.
So where did you grow up as a kid? In Miami?
Yeah, well, I moved to Miami when I was 10 years old from Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived down there from 10 years old till I retired in '86.
And your dad, you said your dad was a police officer in Atlanta?
Yeah, he was a police officer in Atlanta, and then when we moved to Miami, he got on the Miami Police Department.
And what did he do in the police department? What was his job?
He was mostly just routine patrol, and then he transferred to the jail and was working in the jail until he was going to retire, but he died in '63, and he was going to retire, I think, in '66 or somewhere around there, but he passed away in '63.
Now, '63 was when JFK was shot. Wasn't that correct?
It was what?
When did JFK get shot in Dallas? Was that '63?
Yeah, that was '63, November of '63.
So, what was it like being raised by your dad? Was he a fairly strict gentleman?
Well, he was strict, but he was fair. I mean, and so was my mother. I mean, they both were, and of course my brother. He's 7 years older than me, and he retired from the Navy.
Really?
And and then he went on the sheriff's department in Miami. He lived after he retired in 1968, I think it was, 20 years in the Navy, and he lived in Norfolk, Virginia, and worked at the shipyard there as a civilian for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and then him and his first wife got a divorce, and when they did, then he moved to Miami, and he lived with me for about 6 or 8 months, and then he finally got his own apartment.
Wow.
And then he got married again, and then he went on the sheriff's department, and they gave him credit for his 20 years in the Navy.
Really?
So he was only on the sheriff's department for 10 years, but he retired with 30 because they gave him the 20 Navy years service.
No kidding. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's funny you should say your brother was 7 years older than you. My brother's 8 years older than me. Well, one of my brothers is 8 years older.
Yeah.
That's the one that became a Marine. So
Yeah.
your parents were very strict people. And what do you think about the way our society is today with our kids and our discipline? What advice would you give to parents today that are raising their children?
Well, they're too easy on them. I mean, you can't even. You got it to the point now where if you even try to get after your kid, there's somebody's going to call up and report you, and they're going to come out and try to take your kids away from you, and you can't discipline your kids. I mean, many times, I've done something and deserved a spanking, and many times I got my britches pulled down and my butt smacked quite a few times. I mean, But I grew up fine. It never hurt me. That's what all that padding's for back there.
Right.
But today they just let them run wild. You've seen it, I'm sure. You go to Publix or grocery stores, or you go in Walmart, anywhere, and the kids are running wild and screaming and hollering, and parents are just walking along shopping, ain't paying no attention. It's driving everybody else crazy.
So there's a little bit
you
of.
feel like sometimes.
Go ahead.
You feel like sometimes saying, why don't you make that child mine? You just let them get away with everything. Let them do anything they want. And if they don't get everything they want, they start screaming and stomping their feet. I wouldn't put up with that 5 seconds. I mean, my daughters never did anything like that.
So they were
I
well
didn't have to say
disciplined as
anything
well.
to them.
So they were well disciplined, your daughters?
Oh, yeah. I never really had to spank them. All I had to do was look at them. And they knew that, I didn't like what they'd done or whatever, and they stopped right there. They didn't keep doing something if they, because anytime they do something that they thought was wrong, they'd look at me.
Well,
and if I was looking at them, then they'd stop doing it.
Right. I could tell your
Well, I
daughters.
never really had to spank them. I mean, they were girls, and they were little girls, and, I don't know. They're not like boys. Boys seem to want to get into everything, where girls more or less behave a lot better than boys do.
So tell us about what it was like when your daughters brought a boy home to meet you. How did that go?
Well, they had rules and regulations, let me tell you, because they'd come over and visit, and they'd sit out on the porch or right out in the front yard there, and whatever. And when it come 8 o'clock or 8:30, whatever, I just go to the front door and flash a porch light off and on 3 or 4 times, and they knew that was it. And they tell them boys good night, and they come in the house.
So that was the signal.
That was their signal. They knew when that porch light flashed 3 or 4 times, it's time to go in.
I talked about this in one of my podcasts about, family jewels. Back when I was a kid, you got kicked in the family jewels. Today's the kids, they call that junk. I'm like, how can you respect junk? At least you can respect a family jewel.
Respect what now? Junk, you said?
Yeah, the kids call their private parts junk.
Oh, is that what they call it? I didn't know that.
So
That's news to me.
your daughters got married. Did your daughters get married?
My oldest daughter lives in Live Oak. She's still up there with her husband, and Lana, the one you talked to, she's living with her husband. But my middle daughter, Judy, she lives right there, right outside of Dunellen, and not Dunellen, but off, right close to College Road there, off of 484.
I gotcha.
And I don't know the address. I know how to get there, but I don't know the address.
So what was the procedure when the boys decided that they wanted to marry your daughters? How did that go?
Well, they asked me, if it was all right and everything, and we made arrangements for it. And they were old enough, so yeah, that's all right. I mean, they were all nice boys.
So they actually came in and met you and asked permission to marry your daughter.
Well, yeah, they wanted to get married. Of course, my daughter mentioned it, and I said, well, we'll talk about it. And we got together and talked about it. They didn't know if I was going to say okay or no or what, but I mean, they were old enough to get married. I mean, but my youngest, Judy, my middle daughter, she kind of messed up. She got pregnant when she was 15 years old, and she had to get married. And but Michael is my grandson, but it was her son, and
Right.
I adopted him when he was about 8 years old because her and the guy she was married to, they got a divorce and everything else, and she couldn't take care of him or anything else. So me and my first wife adopted him. So he's got my name.
No kidding.
So, but other than that, she's not married now. That was the only time she was ever married. She's never been married again since then.
Wow. So how old's your grandson from that?
But I got all kind of grandkids and great grandkids, and I don't know. I'd have to really stop and think to even count them. I got so many of them.
So let me ask you a question about the military service. When you were a young man, how old were you when you went into the military?
Oh, you still there, Frank?
Yeah. How old were you? Sorry. How old were you?
Oh.
How old were you when you went into the military?
I was 17. I went in when I turned 17. I got Paris Island on my birthday, January 11th, 1954.
Now, did your parents have to sign for you to join the military at 17?
Yeah, they had to sign because I was 17.
And they were okay with that, apparently.
Yeah, they were all right with it. I mean, because they knew I wanted to go in there, and of course my brother went in 1947, I think it was 46 or 47.
Well,
and,
you know who else?
46.
Yeah, you know who else had to get their parents to sign for him to go in the military? Walt Disney. Because he wanted to go to the war, and his dad would not sign the paperwork. They said, you could put my name, but I'm not signing it. And that's what they did. They put his name, and Walt went into the military.
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting. So what made you want to be in the military?
Well, because I don't know, I just wanted to go in the Marine Corps, and my brother, of course, was in the Navy, and I had a lot of uncles. One uncle was in the Air Force. He was a tail gunner in the B-29.
Wow.
And he got shot down, I think, 3 times. And the third time he got shot down, he hurt his back real bad. And he got a medical discharge. And I had another uncle in the Navy, and I had an uncle in the Army. So it was, a lot of my uncles and everything were in the military, and I grew up with them, around them doing the war and all that. And after the war, when they were in the service.
So their stories, you probably heard a lot of stories about them being in the military, serving their country, and that's something you wanted to emulate yourself?
Well, I've heard some. I mean, they're kind of tight-mouthed a lot of times. I'm the same way. Most people, retire or are out of the military. Very few of them want to talk about it or even talk about it, They never talked about it that much. I just know from what happened with my uncle who was in the B-29, and my other uncle who was in the Navy. He was a parachute rigger. He was rig parachutes. That's and then the other one was just, I think he was in the infantry and in the war. He got out after the war was over.
Well, what would you say? How would you say the military shaped the rest of your life?
Oh, well, that's like the old saying: "Once a Marine, always a Marine," and it's embedded in you. I mean, you still, I don't know. It's just the way you walk and the way you act and the discipline, and you learn a lot of discipline.
So you would say it definitely helped you be a better citizen, a better husband, father, police officer, everything.
Oh, of course, yeah. It helps you with everything. It's like I said, you just they teach you so much discipline, how to do things and take care of yourself. And I don't know. It's just it's great. I think every boy ought to go in the military for at least 2 years.
That was going to be my next question. Would you suggest it for all our young people, men and girls?
Oh, absolutely. I would suggest they go in the military, not to be the Marine Corps, go in any branch, but they ought to go in the military. I mean, if they lived over in Israel, you have to. If you live there, you have to serve. I think it's 2 years in the military once you turn 17. So it's mandatory there. But it's good for you. It makes you grow up. You learn a lot. I really learned a lot, and you learn how to take care of yourself. You learn discipline. You learn. I don't know. It's just good for you.
So you got your. Can you tell us some of the? Was there one incident when you were a police officer that really stands out in your mind?
Well, there was so many. It's hard to say there was one. I mean. I don't know any particular one. I mean, it was always scuffles and arrests and chases, and that was one incident I had. I arrested a doctor, and it was about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was on the canine, and it was just I was about ready to get off duty at 6. So it was around 5 o'clock, and this woman come running down the street screaming, and I stopped and asked her what was wrong and everything, and she said, he's trying to kill me, and I heard somebody behind me, and I turned around and running down the street, and he jumped up on the trunk of my car, and my dog is nuts. I'm starting to get on him to get down and everything, and she takes off, and finally he got down, and he come at me, and I opened the door, and Rocky came out. But before I could get Rocky out of the car, me and him are scuffling.
Right.
And he's trying to grab my gun and everything. He was hopped up on some kind of drugs. And finally, I got that door open, and Rocky come out and grabbed a hold of him, and then finally I got a backup, and finally got there, and we cuffed him and everything. But that was one that sticks out of my mind, because it was, like I said, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I come to find out there was apartment buildings over there, and they were having some kind of an all-night, and been, I guess, smoking pot or taking drugs or whatever. I never did find out.
Right.
This guy was some surgeon there in Miami. I mean, he was a big monkey muck.
Right. So tell us about the car that was, because I love to hear what kind of car that was.
Oh, the one I had was a '63 Plymouth.
Wow.
And it had we had the spring-loaded back doors, had the button on the dash, but you could open it from the outside, but you could hit the button on the dash and the back door would pop open.
For the canine.
Yeah, and of course it was a cage back there where the dog was at. They took the seat out and put a floor back there with a rubber mat, like a floor mat on it, rubber, so with a dog. And it had the cage behind me and a cage on the windows. And we didn't have air conditioning back then, of course. But,
well, I tell you what, the officers of today they wouldn't be too happy about that situation. They like their air conditioner quite a bit, especially here in South Florida.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. But back then, there was no radio, no air conditioning. And I remember when I first went on in '58, we didn't even have a heater in a car. They got the cheapest stripped-down thing they could buy.
So was there a police radio in the car? There had to be a radio in the car.
Yeah, we had police radio, we had siren in the car, and we had all that, but they got no extras. It had automatic and the small V8, and that was it. There was no, and I think it had power steering, but it didn't have no air conditioning and no heater, no radio.
That's so
awesome.
They
buy so many of them in there, they get bids, and when we first went on, we had Fords. And then they went to Plymouth.
Right.
But we used to, the little grill up front there where you put your defroster on.
Right.
Well, we used to go to the motor pool, and they had a big ice machine there. And we'd take that shovel out and pack ice all up on top of that vent. And we'd roll up the windows and go down the road and put on the defroster, and it would suck air through the ice and into the car.
Wow.
The only way we had air conditioning.
Oh my gosh! I don't know if the guys that work for me could have handled that. I think they probably would have. That's something else.
If they were around back then, they'd had to handle it because you didn't have no choice. That's what the city bought, and that's what you drove.
What kind of gun did you carry?
I had a 357 Magnum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had that. That was before they went to the one they carry now. Which one they carry? I can't even think of it. I know there's no more.
A lot of agencies carry semi-automatics, 40 calibers, 9 millimeters. Some agencies let you carry your own gun. You know, it just depends on the agency. You know, a lot of agencies, like where I worked, I carried a 45 Glock. Because if I was like,
they got Glocks now, don't they?
Miami, I think they do. I think Miami has Glocks. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, they got them in Coral Gables too. That's a city, the police department issue now. But when I was on, it was just a regular 38.
Oh, so you started with a 38.
Have your own gun. I had a 41 Magnum I carried for a while.
That's a great gun caliber for law enforcement.
That's a big gun, I tell you. It's too bad that they don't have all officers carrying that, because that's a very, very, very reliable caliber for law enforcement. It's surprising that they don't issue those, because it would be really great for our officers out there. Because if you do have to pull your gun, I believe that the officer should have the maximum amount of advantage over the criminal element, in my opinion. Yeah, well, you got to remember that 357 Magnum ain't no slouch either.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
That's pretty wicked.
I carry a 357 off duty as well now that I'm retired, and it's unfortunate that you have to carry a gun after you retire, but it's a necessary situation these days. I received some death threats back when I retired, and I thought it'd be a better idea to make sure I'm well protected. Actually, doing the urgencies of some of my friends, they wanted to make sure I was well protected. And so you had a 357. You drove a Plymouth, and you took your own dog. Was the very first canine for Coral Gables?
Coral Gables, yeah.
And his name was Rocky.
His name was Rocky, and there was Butch and Nero was the name of the other two. There was three of us that started it.
And how did that get started? How did that whole idea come about?
I'm not really sure. They wanted to start a canine, and they put out a memo at people to apply for it that was interested.
Okay.
And I was picked. To go to the school, and two of the other officers were. So the three of us went to the canine school for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I can't remember, one or the other. And then when we graduated, then of course we came right into work, and they had the cars for us, all set up with the cages and everything. And we took them home. We took the cars home with us.
Did the other officers that work road patrol take their cars home, or just you guys?
No, just us. They didn't. The rest of regular patrol, you couldn't take the cars home.
Now, did that cause any? Did that cause any?
They probably take them home today.
Oh, they did. I guarantee they do today. Did that cause any animosity between you and the regular road patrol guys that you got to take the car home?
No, I never heard of any. Nobody ever said anything. But see, we were on call all the time. I got called out from home many times and had to go in to, with the dog when they needed the canine. They'd call one of us, and a lot of times I got called. And it wasn't just me. Miami called, South Miami, because none of them had canines. And when they need them, they knew we had canines, and they'd call us to have them send one of us down to help them.
Now, did they pay you overtime when you got called out?
Oh, yeah, you got paid for it. I mean, you just put in your papers, for overtime, and you could get either overtime or you could get comp time, whichever one you wanted.
That's fascinating. That's really fascinating. So tell our listeners your full name again.
Lamar S. Gilbert.
Clark?
No, Lamar, Lamar.
Lamar?
S. Gilbert.
Cooper? Like Cooper City?
No, Gilbert.
Oh, Gilbert. I'm sorry. Lamar S. Gilbert, who served not only his country, but his community of Coral Gables in the United States Marine Corps, and a Coral Gables police officer, then canine. Did you ever so you said you became a sergeant. Were you still the canine? Did you still have a canine when you were a sergeant?
No, I didn't work with him as a sergeant. I was in charge of the canine along with routine regular patrol.
Okay.
They left me in charge of the canine.
So I think I misunderstood you. So you were a canine and then you became a sergeant?
Yeah, I made sergeant in '66, and then they transferred me to patrol as a patrol sergeant, but left me in charge of the canine.
I got you. But you didn't have a dog anymore.
I had my dog, but I didn't work with him.
You didn't work
bring
him.
to
I got you. I got you. That's curious because when I was a canine sergeant, I didn't have a canine. See, I never was a canine officer, but I was a canine sergeant for a short time. And I always thought that it would make sense if you were the sergeant of canine to actually have a dog. But I guess there was certain, I guess, financial reasons that they didn't want you to do that. I'm not really sure, but I always thought that would have been cool to have, a canine as well. But I don't know.
Well, your main job, see, was patrol.
Right.
You were a patrol supervisor, and your main job was handling patrol and whoever needed you for that. But also part of your job was making sure the canine done what they were supposed to do and with training and everything else. It was like just something extra they put on you to do.
I gotcha. Well, Lamar, I have to tell you, this was an amazing story. You kind of got me right at the get-go when you said it was your dog. It was your personal dog that you took to work and that they trained to be a canine. Now, we can take a lot of agencies allow you to use your own gun, but I haven't heard of any agency that lets you use your own dog yet. And I found that extremely fascinating. I have to tell you, we're probably going to do another show with you because I think there's a lot more to your story and your experiences that will help the future law enforcement officers and our future citizens of our country, because I think what you said about the discipline of our children and the service to our country are two extremely large areas where we're not doing the best job that we can today in the United States.
Yeah, that's just true.
And I hear that you live in a really awesome, fun place called The Villages. Is that true?
Yeah, you know where it's at?
I do know where it's at. I don't think I've ever been there, but we're going to come visit you one of these days. We're going to bring our police car, and we're going to do a cookout, and we're going to have a good old time.
Yeah, I lived in Ocala for 30 years. So.
You've lived in The Villages for 30 years?
No, I lived in Ocala for 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
I lived there. My wife passed away in 2010. My second wife.
Sorry to hear that.
My first wife is still alive, but she passed. My second wife passed away in 2010, and we had 7.5 acres there off of where Shady Road is, of course, and
right.
We were off of County Road 312, and we had horses and everything else. And after she passed away, then I just sold everything and I moved to The Villages.
Wow.
That was in 2011.
Well, we're very sorry for your loss, and I have to tell you, you raised some amazing daughters, and I'm so pleased that we had a chance to talk to you and share your stories with our listening, audience, because you just don't get to talk to people that were there doing the stuff that you did, and how much law enforcement has changed over the years. And I have to tell you, you laid an amazing foundation for the future law enforcement officers in that area and all over the country, because men like you coming out of the military, first of all, serving your country, that's amazing, and we appreciate that, and we thank you for your service. And then continuing that service, serving the public and serving the community of Coral Gables, we salute you, Lamar, for putting yourself in harm's way to make sure that we all can pull up the blanket of freedom around our necks at night when the wolves are out in the streets.
Well, somebody's doing it for me today. I mean, somebody's always out there willing to do it, and I hope they always are,
Well, we really love your attitude. We're definitely going to meet you in person. I can't wait to see it. Do you have any of the stuff when you were a police officer, your patches and any of that stuff left?
Oh, yeah. I got, I think I got a couple patches left that was on the uniform. And
you still have the gun? You still have the 41?
Do what?
Do you still have that 41 Magnum?
No, I don't have that. I got 2 9mm and a snub nose. That's all I got right now. I sold all my other guns.
All right. I can't wait to. Do you have any uniforms?
No, I don't have any uniforms left there. I don't know whatever happened to them.
Do you have pictures of you in uniform?
Oh, a picture? Oh, yeah. I got pictures of me in uniform.
Awesome. I'm gonna take some pictures of your pictures so we can show our audience what you look like and what those uniforms looked like back in the day. I'm sure they'll be interested to see that.
I got pictures on my wall up here. Me and all three of the canines. We're all three there.
Awesome.
With dogs.
Now, do you keep in contact with those guys? Are those guys around still?
No, I think one of them already passed away, and the other one, I'm not sure where he's at. He's retired and moved somewhere out of state. I don't even know where he's at.
I gotcha.
But, a lot of the guys are gone, that retired when I did, or I worked with for 28 years.
Right.
And a lot of them are, I'm in contact with the FOP down there and all, and they're on Facebook, and they send all of us, all the retirees, things when somebody passes away or whatever.
I gotcha.
And I know in the last 8 years, there's probably been 6 or 8 of them that's died that I worked with for many, many years. They're all up there like me. They're all in their late 70s, 80s. I mean, how long can you last? You're only going to be here so long, and you're gone.
Right. Well, Lamar, it was an absolute pleasure. I love what you told us, and I look forward to doing another show, and we're definitely going to come visit you at the villages and take some pictures and stuff and do a live video with you. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to contact us and being on the Sergeant Frank Show. I'm actually designing something very special that we're going to share with you, and I'm not going to tell you about it because it's going to be a surprise. But thank you so much for taking some time today. And we're going to talk to you again real soon.
Well, are you on the computer? I've never heard of the Sergeant Frank Show. I'm not familiar.
Well, it's a podcast, and we do it on our YouTube channel, which is called Adopt a Cop USA official site on YouTube. And that's where
so I could get it on my computer.
You can get it on your computer. I'll send you the link as soon as your show is edited and put together. I'll send you the link, and then you can play it on your computer or your phone.
Okay, that sounds good.
And we're going to come visit you one of these days.
I got to call my daughter back. She said something about a magazine, and she wanted a copy of something to show my grandkids and everything else.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we would love to get that as well, and we'll post it on our website.
All right. Well, she knows your website.
I gave her one of our stickers, and it has our website, which is myAACUSA.org. So she'll get you that information and set it all up for you, and then you'll be able to listen to the show.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
So thank you so much, Lamar, and tell our listeners how old you are today.
Well, I'm 81. I'll be 82 in January.
Man, I have to tell you, you don't sound like an 81-year-old man. You sound a heck of a lot younger. Probably more like 41.
Well, people tell me I don't act like one either, but that's the way it is. I mean, I don't want to act like an old man if I can help it.
Well, there you go. Well, you're a big hero for us. We really love everything you've done for our country and our community, and we look forward to meeting you in person, sir.
All right. Well, I look forward to it too.
All right, Lamar. You have a great day, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Drive safely.
Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Young one, it's not cool to be a thug. There is nothing good about going selling drugs. The money don't mean nothing when you're harming everyone. And you can get killed bringing pain to your mom. Take a legal substance and you can OT. Overdose from nasty chemicals in the streets. Live a happy life, you gotta keep your hands clean.